Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Kesubos of Ayin Dalet, number 74. We have a great share for you today. We're going to be talking more about this concept that Adam Yodeya, a person doesn't want his Bia to be a Bia Znus, and therefore he's Bo'al L'Shem Kiddushin. He does the Bia L'Shem Kiddushin. We talked extensively about that in Iyot Ben Sion on Daf Ayin Gimel. We're going to talk more about that in Iyot Ben Sion Ayin Dalet, exactly the nature of that, and further explain why at the wedding, a regular wedding, you say by Birkas Eresin, like the chuppah, the kiddushin, the chuppah precedes the kiddushin, even though technically in most of our marriages, the kiddushin, the giving of the ring, precedes the actual chuppah. Let's get started. About 10 lines down, Ayin Dalet and Aleph. Esive Ra'acha B'reid Rav Ika Bar Achse. Ra'acha B'reid Rav Ika is asking on what the Gemara has given a proof for. The Gemara just gave a proof, similarly to Shmuel. Shmuel says, Kidshal Tanai V'kinsa Stam, you don't need a get. So you're Makadish someone, the Tanai, you don't need a get. We don't assume that he's Mochel the Tanai, and we also don't assume, like Rav said, even though the halacha follows Rav, that Ein Adam Moser Bilas Bilas Nus, he was Bo'al L'Shem Kiddushin. We don't assume that. So he asked the question with the following brayso: Chalitza Mutas Kshera. This is a brayso that we brought also in Mesachas Yevamos. You do chalitza with a toast, with a mistake. Ezi chalitza mutas. What is considered a chalitza mutas? It's not clear from the brayso what exactly mistaken chalitza is. Reish Lakish says, Kol she'omer lo chlos la uvekach ata konza. Right? The Dayanim say to the brother, he's not aware of the halachas of even chalitza. Do chalitza. Let her take your shoe off and spit near the shoe and say some psukim, and you will have in mind that you'll be acquire her. Basically, you'll do yibam through this. So the brayso states, according to Reish Lakish, even if he doesn't understand what he's doing, the chalitza is a valid chalitza, and she's muteres l'shuk. Amar b'Yochanan, Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, Ani shona ben shen eskaven he hu when eskaven he, ben shen eskaven he when eskaven hu. Chalitza is psula. Whether he has kavana and she doesn't have kavana, or she has kavana, he doesn't have kavana. Chalitza psula ashes kaven shneim. That's what it says in Mesachas Yevamos. V'ad amar chalitza k'sher. You can say by this brayso, chalitza would be kshera. Elamar b'Yochanan. What does it mean? Kol she'omer lo chalos la minash tizul necham asayim zuz. Chalitza mutas is where you tell the guy do chalitza, and she's going to give you on condition that she's going to give you $200, let's say, and she doesn't actually give him $200. Nonetheless, even though the tonight wasn't fulfilled, the kiddushin is good. The chalitza is a good chalitza. Alma came on the avod ma'isa achule achle tonight. Once he did the chalitza, he was mochel the tonight. He waived the tonight, even if the stipulation wasn't carried out. He still would deem it a valid chalitza. Hakanami came on the bal achule achle tonight. So here also, when he does the bia, he makes it tonight. Kiddushin alei tonight, and then he's konsa and he does a bia. So therefore, he's mochel the tonight. One of the svaros of Rav, but at least the halach will be like Rav and not like Shmuel. Amalei barbe Rav shapir ka'amrit. So the people in the yeshivas that are you really saying a good proof? Mifti kol tonight meicha gamrinan. But tonight b'nei gada b'nei Reuven. Where do you learn the concept of tonight? And we talked more about machlokas on Daf Memches between Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda about. We'll learn more about this in Mesachas Kiddushin. The concept of a tanai. A tanai is a contingency plan, a stipulation that you do a certain action dependent on something else. So there's certain halachas about it tonight, according to Rav Meir. Meir says you need a lot of different rules. And here the Gemara seems to say, either like Rav Meir or even Rav Yehuda could agree to some of the rules that Tanai are needed. One of the rules that you need by a Tanai for it to be effective, we learned from Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven. There, Moshe said to Yoshua, he said, "Go let Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven." Said that if we go ahead of the army and help conquer Eretz Yisrael, then we should get our portion in Eivra Yarden on the other side of the Jordan, presumably where Jordan is now. That's where they wanted their stake in the land, but it was contingent upon them leading Chalutzim, going ahead in the war and leading Klal Yisrael in the war against the people in Canaan. So where do we learn from Negad and Reuben? It's not the Efshah the Kumal de Shliach Gasim Havit tonight, right? Moshe appointed Yoshua as a Shliach. Moshe didn't enter Eretz Yisrael. Yoshua is the one who was Cholek, who portioned out Eretz Yisrael. So there, portioning the land could be done only the Shliach through an emissary. Chalitza is something the Gemara says in Yevamos that she has to take the shoe off his foot, not his shliach's foot. So if you take off a shliach, it's not valid. So therefore, chalitza is not something you can make a t'nai. So that can't be. So that's the reason over there it doesn't work by chalitza. The chalitza mutas is ksheira is because you can't make a t'nai over there because t'naim are not shayach over there. It's not applicable a t'nai in a case where you can't do it al yedei shliach. The Gemara asked, what do you mean? Bia, we had a brisa on Daf Ayin Gimel, which says that a man says, I'm going to bowl you l'shem kedusha. I'm not shir abba, that your father, on condition that your father wants us to be married. And there, the Gemara says the Tanai is effective. We see whether the father actually wanted to or he didn't want to. So the Gemara says, and you can't do bia al yedei shliach. Bia has to be done with the person. You can't appoint someone else to do a bia. That's how I explain my parnis. You could have someone help you out with the bia, a gigolo or an escort, but it's not really the same completely. You can't have really a bia through the shliach. So the Gemara answers, no, there it's different. Hasa mishum de'iskish havayas hadadi. It's v'yatzav haisa, right? All the havayos, the 3 different ways of being mekayim kedushin, kesef shtar bia, like it says at the beginning of Maseches Kedushin, they're all compared to each other. Therefore, even though by bia you can't really make a tanai, but since by kesef and stars you can make a shliach to give the kesef or the star to the woman, so therefore a bia also the tanai would work. Amar Ravula bar Abba, Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Hamakadish b'milveh Baal, Al Tanai Baal, V'pacham Mishav Pruta Baal. They were called Shriachamano Get. Lacha follows Rav, right? At least by Tanai, right? He makes a kedushin al Tanai, and he's konsa stam, right? He's Boel. So therefore, you need a get in that case, and he adds in 2 other cases also. Makadosh b'milveh. The Gemara says in kedushin that technically a kedushin al with a milveh, meaning she owes you money, a woman owes you money, she borrowed money from you, and you say, you don't have to pay off the money, and I'm makadosh you with that milveh, with the foregoing the debt. I'm going to forego the debt, and with that with that money that I'm foregoing, you should be mikudesha. That doesn't work for kedushin, or your bowl, you're makadosh pakam shava pruta. The Gemara says the first Mishnah Maseches Kedushin says kedushin has to be at least a shava pruta. So in all those cases, right, even though technically it's not a valid kedushin, we assume, like Rav said before, the ena demosa biloso bilosnos. We assume we didn't want it to be at the bilosnos, and therefore, even though technically the kedushin with the kesef is not valid, with the milveh or pacham mishava pruta or the t'nai, nonetheless, because of the ena demosa biloso bilosnos, we assume that it is a valid marriage. Amar Rav Yosef Barabba, Amar Rav Menachem, Amar Rav Ami, Amakadosh Pacham Shava Pruta, Obal Shrikam Get. He says, Riami says, only when he's Makadosh with Pacham Shava Pruta, and then he's bald, then we assume it's a real marriage, you need a get. But how is Lo Toy? Because there he knows, every man knows, you have to Makadosh at least with the Shava Pruta, so he knows originally his Kedusha Kesef were invalid. So therefore he knows when he does the Bila, he's doing the Bila of the Shem Kedusha. Avabahanach Toy, Makadosh with Milveh and Al Tanai, they really think they're Makadosh them with Tanai and with the Milveh. They thought it was a valid Kedushin, so therefore we can't say that a person makes his Bia L'Shem Kedushin. So the halacha follows the first statement over here, Ula. In all 3 cases, we assume Eidah Mosad Bilosa Bilosnos, and seemingly we assume that he doesn't understand. Most people don't understand Mekadosh Milveh and Mekudesh unless you're a lamda and you learn Maseches Kedushin. You think Mekadosh Milveh is Mekudesha. So why is it that we paskin that Ein Adam also Bilas Nus when he doesn't know? He thinks he is Mekadosh for the Kesef, and then we assume he's Mekadosh for the Bia. We'll explain that more in Yud Ben Zion. Amar Rav Kahana Ishmei Deula Mekadosh Al Tanayu Baal Mekadosh Al Tanayu Baal Shricham Get, like the halacha follows Rav. Zaya Ma'isa Ulaya Koach Cham Lehotzia. An actual case happened. The Chamim couldn't remove them below get. They made her give a get. Lafuke Mahai Tana. Right? This teaching is coming to exclude from the following Tana. Damar of Yehuda Mishmol Mishmor Bishmol Vahilo Nisbasa Asura. Pasuk is by Sota, right? She wasn't taken forcibly. She wasn't Nensa. She's Asura. A woman committed adultery. She's Asura. Ha Nisbasa. She was taken against her will, Ba'onis. She was raped. Mutaris. She's Mutar. Yeshtacha Cheres. It says Vihi. So there's another case, Vihi. There's another case. 1 second. There's another case where she also another case, even when she's not forced, she's mutaris. She makes a kedushin, but the kedushin was mistaken. Meaning she made it al tonight. Shafilu b'na more kaval kseifa. Even if they got married and they had a child, right? The man is she can leave the marriage because the tanai wasn't completed. The kedushay toast, the tanai wasn't completed. So therefore, you don't need a get. So that price seems like you don't need a get. We pass like Rav, you do need a get because ena the mosa bilos nos. Tana Rabbanan, the ayin dal on the base. Halacha etzel chacham vehitira. Let's say you made a tanai, kid shal tanai becomes a stam, and then they got married, and then she went ahead and she was matir the neder, right? She said, "Amanash ein lecha nedarim." And the Kaddish, I'm only Mekadesh you, Amanas, that you don't have Nadarim. And then, after they got married, he realized she has Nadarim, but wait a second. She went, it was Matir than Nadarim. So now she doesn't have Nadarim. Mekudeshes. It's a Rova Repo, it's a Enam Mekudeshes. She made a tonight, she doesn't have movement, blemishes, and they got married. And then he finds out she has blemishes, she goes to a doctor, and the doctor cures her. Now she has no more blemishes. The Tanai is effective, she's not Mekudeshes. Ma ben Chacham la Rova. What's the difference between the two cases? Chacham okers neder mikara. When a chacham is matir and neder, he removes it that it never existed. So therefore, when he's mekadesh, she never had nedarim. However, when she was mekudesh, she had blemishes. Now he removed them, but it's only from now on forward. So the Gemara asks, so another Brayz says even by a chacham being matir and nedarim, she's not mekudesh. What's the difference? I'm a rava lo kasha. Hara meir hara belazar. One Bryce says Rav Meir, one Bryce follows Rav Meir. Meir, the Amar Adam Rotish Tizbaz Ishtov of Bastin. One Bryce says, right, that if she's matir the neder, the first Bryce says she's matir the nedarim, it is a valid kedusha, because he doesn't mind if his wife goes to Bastin. In order to matir neder, she has to come in front of a Bastin of 3 people. It's embarrassing for a woman to come to a Bastin of 3 people. A husband is okay with that, according to Rav Meir. So therefore, when the chacham is matir the neder, so he assumed that if that were to happen, then they'd stay married. However, Lezer the Amar ein adam rosish b'ato ishta b'beistin. Lezer holds no, a man doesn't want his wife to be embarrassed by going in front of a beistin. So therefore, when he made the kedushin al tanai, and even though she matir the nedarim afterwards, since the tanai was amna she'en lecha nedarim, he never planned on her being matir in the Dharma. Even if she's matir in the Dharma afterwards, he didn't want her to be matir in the Dharma. So it's like that he was Makadosh al Tanai, that she doesn't have the Dharma at the beginning, and even if she went ahead and was matir in the Dharma, it's not something he wanted her to do, so therefore he's machbid in the Tanai, and it would invalidate the marriage. Mahi, where do we find this malach? This is a Mishnah in Gittin. He divorces his wife because she has a vow. She takes a vow. What type of vow we'll discuss soon. Well, Yachzir, Chazal, the Chamim made a takana derabbanan that he can't remarry her. Mishum Shemra, if she had bad rumors going about her that she committed adultery, lo Yachzir. Also, in that case, he can't remarry her. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol Neder Sheyadu Bo Rabim lo Yachzir, Yadu Bo Rabim Yachzir. Yehuda says there's 3 opinions about this Mishnah about Nedarim. He says it depends what type of neder. If it was a neder that is public neder, that 10 people knew about it, we'll see according to one opinion, he can't remarry her because you can't annul a neder, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that was made in front of 10 people. Lo yoda were Rabbim, if 10 people didn't know about it, he could be machzir because he could machzir that neder. Meir Omer kol neder shesarich chakiras chacham lo yachzir, she'ena sarich chakiras chacham yachzir. And Meir holds the reason they made this takana derabbanan that if he's motzir her mishum neder, right? He says I don't want to stay married to her. I'm going to megarish her because she took a neder. And I'm upset that she took nedarim. She's taking vows upon herself. She's making our life more difficult. So even though technically with Araisa, if he's megarish her, he could remarry her. But if they allowed him to remarry her, there's always a possibility. Let's say she didn't marry him. She went and married somebody else, right? So he wants to ruin their marriage, right? How does he ruin their marriage? She married somebody else. They had kids already, right? So if he voids, he says, the gerushin that I gave to my wife originally because of the neder, I didn't really mean to give her a gerushin if I knew that the neder was going to be matir. So then he could void his gerushin, and the children from the second marriage could become zerim. So therefore, they're masakin that he can no longer remarry her. So he wouldn't say this. So Meir says it only applies to nedarim to chakiras chacham. Right? There's 2 different types of nedarim that a woman can make. She can make nedarim that are called inui nefesh or beino lebeina, which are things that the husband has the right to annul. Right? It's called hafaras baal. The baal can be made for those nedarim. When it comes to other nedarim that are not related to the relationship between the husband and wife, or not related to the inui nefesh of the woman, which is something the husband is directly responsible for. So that's something that you have to go to a chacham to be matir. So Rameir says, Kol neder shasar chakiras chacham, right? You need to go to a chacham. He couldn't annul it himself. Lo yachzir. Then they made it to kind of you shouldn't return. However, if it was a neder that he could have annulled and he chose not to, so you can no longer say afterwards, oh, if I would have known about it, I would have mat the neder, because it's something that's affected you. You should have known about it. You weren't matir, so you can't abort the gerushin. The gerushin, you can't abrogate the gerushin, and therefore there's no problem in makalka. You'll never be makalka the woman. Amru Lezer says, he says in both cases, you can never be machzir, but the real reason is nisha einot tzarach. The case where a neder, where you don't need the husband, where you don't need the chacham, right? Where the husband could have done it, because in that case he has the opposite logic. He says that something that bothers him, that's beino lebeino or inu nefesh, something that bothers him, he could say, really, I really didn't want her to keep that neder. If I would have known about that neder, I would have felt that neder. It would have bothered me the neder. I would have been mat to the neder. So then he could abrogate the gerushin. However, in a case where it's not related to him, then he wouldn't be able to abrogate it. But still, midrabanan, they said in all cases he can't be machzir her. My time with the Yehuda. So first the Gemara digresses to discuss what's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda, which has nothing to do with the Machlokes in Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar. The Chsiv, on top of Ayin Hem and Aleph, v'lo hikum b'nei Yisrael knishbu lahem nesi ha'eda. It's talking about in Yehoshua, the Givonim came and they tried to fake they were part of the Bnei Khan, and they were going to be killed by the Jews who were entering Eretz Yisrael. They tried to fake as some faraway nation that were not part of the Canaanim, and they got them to falsely agree that they shouldn't kill them out. And even though after they found out that there was a ruse, they said, we have to keep our neder, because it was a neder that was made in public. V'kama rabim. What is rabim in front of rabim? Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Shlosha. 3. Yomim Shnayim Rabim Shlosha. That's in the Torah by Azab. It says Yomim Rabim. Yomim is, the minimum of Yomim is 2. It's plural. Rabim says 3. So that's Yomim Rabim, so it's 3. So Rabbi Yehuda, when he says a neder that was done in front of Rabbim, that's only 3. That's 3 people. The neder done in front of 3 people is a neder that was made by Rabbim in front of the public, and you can't be matir it. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Asar. Rabbi Yitzchak says that's 10. Eda ksiv. It says by the Givonim Eda, and see Eda, it has to be Eda. We know from the Meraglim, Eda is 10 people. Now the Gemara explains the Machlokes and Remain Elazar. Rero Omer Kol Neder Zarach L'Geros Hacham L'Yachzir. Elazar Omer L'Asru Sarich Al Neish Eno Sarach. Why Kamifli? What's the Machlokes between them? Remeir Savar Adam Rosh Zibazi Yishtav Based in. Remeir holds it's okay, or he wants his wife to be in his baza and based in. So therefore, a neder that is not relevant to him, that needs a chacham to be matir, right? So therefore, that's why he said kol neder shesarach chakiras chacham lo yachzir, because in dafka in those cases he would allow her to go in front of a judge and matir the neder. So he would have known about that. He would matir it, and he would makakel her. Lezer omer savar ein adam rosh shbazi yishav based in. A man would not want that. So it's only the neder which is relevant to him that he could be made for. Those are the nedarim he can claim. If he would have known about it or properly considered, he would have abrogated those nedarim. And that's the machlokes in Meir and Rabbi Elazar. Basically, do we assume that a man would want his wife to be mizbazah and based or not mizbazah and based? And that would be the explanation of the 2 braysos. One brayso says that a chacham who matir is a neder, that if the chacham matir is a neder, one second. If the chacham is matir the neder, one brayso says that he's oker mikaro, and therefore if it's kishal t'nai and there was a nedarim over there, so it retroactively removes the neder, and therefore it's a valid kedusha. And the other opinion, another brayso which says you can't do that. You can't say the t'nai was fulfilled. There's no nedarim because Rabbi Elazar says ein adam rosh shibati yishuv basin. That would be the current explanation of machlokas between the 2 braysos. Rava is going to offer a different explanation to Razali's 2 braysos tomorrow on Daf Ayin Hey. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in Iyad Ben Sion, where we discuss more about Ein Adam Osa Bilaso Bilas Nos. What exactly does that mean? And just further explain why at marriages we say the chuppah of kiddushin, even though the kiddushin presumably comes before the chuppah. See you in Iyad Ben Sion coming up next.